I would like to know how the process of going from a work experience coffee bartender floor sweeper person go is to an undercutter. How did you make that transition? Like it's a bit it's it's a very natural thing. I mean, we've probably all done it. Whoever is a tailor and is listening to this, they probably have done coffees and errands and sweeping the floors and stuff like that. But then how was your
Yeah.
transition from that to an undercutter and then a cutter?
It was. I mean, it's fairly seamless because what happens every Tom Sweeney is such, now especially is one of probably the bigger tailoring firms in London. It's
Mm-hmm.
got a worldwide presence, in New York, and they do trunk shows. So they're a really big firm. That means in the early days when I was there was always an opportunity to pick up
Mm.
a tailoring, some tailoring job, whether it was pressing cloth to pre-shrink it for the cutter,
Mm-hmm.
or was just finding patterns and laying it with
Mm.
laying it with the cloth to be cut.
Mm.
So you do the run to the alteration tailor, you get the coffee, and then you have some downtime, and so you ask, what can I do? When I started there, I worked. I would get there at 9. I'd stay till 6, and I wouldn't take a lunch.
Mm.
And they used to say, "Take lunch." I said, "No, that's right. I'm fine. I'd rather just work." I definitely take lunches now,
Why
but
did you not take a lunch? Tell me, why did you
because
not
I
take lunches?
because I didn't want to have an hour where I could have done that tailoring bit.
Right,
I
right.
didn't want to go out, so I was just like, I'm going to be there, and I probably did
Mm.
that for the first year and a half, 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
where I would just, I mean, I might have like one if they would buy me like a sandwich when they would go out, but 9 times out of 10, I would just not eat when I was there,
Mm.
um, and maybe pick up like a power bar or something like on a trip to the
Mm.
alteration tailor compressor. And it
Mm.
was the idea for me, it was if I go out for an hour,
Mm.
or if they think I'm on lunch for an hour, they're not going to ask me to potentially do that thing that I really want to do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
When I wasn't, when I had downtime, I'd ask the cutter Tom if I could just watch him work. And I would
mm-hmm,
just watch him work and watch him work. And I would, we'd have, just conversation. And eventually that would be like, oh, well, do you want to try striking out these trousers? I'm really busy.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And I would say, sure. And so he might write an email and I would strike the trousers, and I wouldn't cut them out because he would check them and then he would cut them out. But that freed up the time for him
mm-hmm,
to do something else. And that then slowly builds into, well, okay, you've struck out trousers 10, 15 times now. This is a plain cloth. Go ahead and strike them and cut them out.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And then that builds into, okay, we'll do the same with
mm-hmm,
a suit, do the same with, this overcoat.
mm-hmm,
To the point where it's like, well, the draft. You've seen me draft, 1,000 times. Why don't you draft this, and I'll have a look at it. And if it looks good, I'll use that pattern.
mm-hmm,
And then again, it just naturally develops. But for me, it was always about being there, being present, being able to say, I can do that.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then the things you learned at Tom Sweeney, could you easily transfer them, for example, to another company like Huntsman?
Uh, yes and no. There are certain ways that Tom Sweeney was working that was like they would do a different draft style of trousers at Tom Sweeney than I was doing at Huntsman. So you would just learn those. But because a lot of the techniques are the same, a lot of
Mm-hmm,
the equations are the same, you can amalgamate them after you have enough of experience.
mm-hmm,
This is true, because I went from Tom Sweeney to Dunhill, and there was a lot of overlap. And then I
mm-hmm,
went into Huntsman, and there was a lot of overlap, but I always had to learn something new or
mm-hmm.
different every time I made a jump.
Right, 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 right. So, since I'd like to talk also about your business, I'm just going to skip a lot of things in between. So you started your own company. I remember we were We met up in Battersea Park about 2 years ago, something like that. Was it
Uh,
2019, something like that? 2020, maybe?
I think, well, no, because I think we met up after I left Huntsman.
Yeah,
So
yeah. That's
that would have been just a year ago. So it would have been probably December of last year,
is that so? December last year.
which
Okay,
goes to show you how much COVID has changed
Jeez,
our kind of
yeah, it feels like 3 years ago
time.
almost. That is, yeah, that is weird. Okay, so you started your own company.
Yeah.
What was your motivation for it? Let's start with that, and then I have a few questions for that. What was your
So
motivation? Yeah.
always wanted to start my own company.
Hmm.
From the moment I started doing alterations in
Hmm.
California,
Hmm.
I had this aspiration, like most young people do, of having a business they can call their own, where they can do things exactly the way they want to do.
Right.
Very comfortable at every job that I had.
Hmm.
And the silver lining, and silver lining I need to say with a real asterisk, because a lot of people really suffered during the pandemic and a lot of people had a lot of uncertainty.
Hmm.
I was unfortunately one of the many that were made redundant at
Hmm.
Huntsman.
Hmm.
It was the perfect opportunity for me to be
Hmm.
forced to attempt the thing I always wanted to do.
Hmm. Did you feel
And
as
so,
if you were ready?
um, yes and no.
Why not?
I being being a cutter,
Hmm.
I was ready to take measurements and cut patterns and fit and make and work with tailors and do all the timelines. I was not ready for social media posts
Hmm.
and liaising with clients about every which way of things and getting bills. It seems like, and I don't know about you, it seems like I get a bill sent to me every single day, and just managing payments of bills and doing all the administrative sides,
Yeah.
ordering trims, making sure that I'm in for a parcel delivery, or I've set aside
Mm.
a safe space so the courier can leave it there without having to take it back to the team. It was all that logistical stuff that had normally been taken care of
Yes.
that posed the greatest learning curve.
Hmm. Hmm.
And what it has done is made me have to really rethink my daily schedule as a one
Hmm.
man band,
Hmm.
because I need to be able to make sure that tailoring is at the forefront, but
Hmm.
I'm also able to do all of the other things that are required of me to do as a business owner.
Hmm. Hmm. Does do those things make you still enjoy what you're doing, or kind of like do you sometimes get fed up? It's like, oh man, like this is not what I really wanted. Setting up my own shop.
Uh, there are elements of it, because so you and I both have home workshops.
Hmm.
My wife hates that I have a home workshop.
Hmm.
I hate that I have a home workshop. My wife has her own business, so we have two small businesses
Hmm.
and a small child
Hmm.
and a very large Christmas tree, all in our house right now.
Right, right, right.
So things are just crowded and
Hmm.
cramped.
Hmm.
Uh, and I think that it's difficult because I live on the kind of border of Kent and London,
Hmm.
down in the south. Going into London for a couple of appointments
Hmm.
takes so much time out of my day.
Hmm.
And if I have appointments that are spaced out, one at 11 and one at 2,
Hmm.
I don't have enough time to come back home. So there's a lot of dead time in my day, which
Hmm.
I think is probably the most frustrating part
Hmm.
of my current setup.
Right.
I would much rather be able to have an 11 o'clock appointment, write up the fitting notes, and go straight into either what I was doing or recutting and remarking the fitting that I just had. Whereas now it's, well, I finished at 11:30 and I have, 2 hours, 2.5 hours until my next appointment. I'm not going to go home and come back just for 5 minutes of being at home.
So what do you do?
I'll try to meet with someone, maybe, meet with a friend for coffee. I'll maybe go to I'll find busy work, but it's usually work that is not essential and it's designed to pass the time.
Oh, I see. That is tricky. That is very tricky.
Yeah, really. Yeah, it is actually probably the biggest surprise because I knew there was admin stuff. I knew there was bills to pay and there was emails. I didn't realize how inefficient it was to not be based permanently in London, in central London.
Yes, that is true. So would you say that apart from the challenges that you have logistically, that you have other challenges of being on your own from the tailoring side?
Yeah, I mean, there's always, finding new clients. That is a challenge. This year has been, is, even though it feels like it's gone on forever and we're not ever going to get out of it, it is still the anomaly. So social interaction is down, events are down. So I'm not able to get out and meet people. I'm not able to have people really see what I'm wearing. It's really funny because I've said to others, there is a big leap of faith for a new person to buy a suit from an independent like myself or like you or someone else, anyone else that we know. Because the first thing clients usually ask if I get a referral is, oh, where can I see you? Where's your shop? I've looked you up online. I don't see your shop. And you say, well, I don't have a shop. I work from my house. To tell someone you work from a house and then that you want them to send you £5,000 in a bank transfer, there has to be, an element of trust that this isn't a scam. And that's difficult because if I'm just getting a phone call, if I'm not meeting someone at a central location, or I've met someone at an event and, I've been introduced personally by an acquaintance or a friend, it is really hard to find people who are willing to make that leap.
Yeah.
So presumably once life gets back to normal, as we all hope it does, that element of growing the business will become easier.